Hi friends, I'm back to finish up a day's work. So yesterday I left you at this point where Francisco and Abuelo finally found a job of gardening. And their job was to pull the what? To pull the weeds out. So we were digging deep into this story and we were looking into how the author describes the characters in the setting. And a lot of times, the author teaches us a lot about the characters through their actions, through their interactions, and through the setting around them. So yesterday, we kind of were looking at these two. You should have your reader's notebook open so that we can add to this today. But we were talking about the setting, and we learned that in California, where they live, there's hardworking people there, and that you have to work really hard to be able to earn money. We didn't write anything down yet for this setting. And then we were really digging into Francisco, and we were saying that he's friendly, kind, and hardworking. Okay, we also want to think about today the other character, Abuelo, okay, the grandpa. So Abuelo. And we can add, you should have more room than me, but we can add some describing words about Abuelo. All right? So now we're going to keep thinking about this setting, but we're going to do two more and talk about two more things today. So authors show us character traits through their behavior. What do we learn by observing the characters through thoughts and actions and words? Okay? So already we kind of came up with Francisco. So these two might be a little similar. So Francisco's friendly, kind, and hardworking, and we're thinking about Abuelo, okay? We can also add Francisco. Remember how he tipped his hat and said hello to the lady? He's very what? Polite. So what do we learn by observing the characters' thoughts, actions, and words? All right, so let's add Francisco as polite. And I'm not, Francisco is polite. Okay, and then we'll kind of dig into Abuelo also, all right? And then the last thing that we are going to think about is at the end of the story, based on what we know about a character, we can predict the future action. So we'll wait and do that one at the end, all right? And I'm actually gonna leave that one for you for a discussion post. All right, so pretty much characters and setting, let's see what we can learn. They worked through the morning. A little poodle barked at them through the railings above. Yap, yap, yap. An orange cat prowled the bank. There was a pool in one of the new backyards. Francisco heard splashing and voices. The water made him hotter. His shoulders and arms hurt. He thought about how proud Mama would be tonight. Does he care about what his mom thinks about him? He seems like a boy that really wants to please his mom. And I bet you guys are the same way at your house. You like to do things to please and to follow what your mom and dad expect, right? $60, she'd say, and she'd hug Francisco and Abuelo. It is a fortune. Now let's kind of stop and think about this too. Is $60 really a lot of money? Not really. So we're also kind of learning through the setting of these people that have to go out and find work and that will take really any work that they're probably a little poor, right? They aren't as fortunate maybe as most of us are. Their mom and dad don't have a job that they go to every day, or they're not lucky enough to have their mom or dad stay at home with them. Their mom and dad have to work really hard. So what do we learn through this setting? That in this part of California too, that there's poverty in this part. So the setting can reveal a lot about the character. So are we learning that Francisco is poor? Go ahead and write that down for your setting, okay? At lunchtime, he and Abuelo ate the tortillas and tomatoes and drank the bottle of water she had packed. In another hour, they were finished. The bank looked so nice with just the brown dirt and pretty flowers. Muy bonito, Abuelo said. And Francisco said, yes, beautiful. He and his grandfather shook hands. Francisco thought he had never felt so good. He'd helped his grandfather, and he had worked himself. What do we learn right now? We're observing his actions and his thoughts. So Francisco is polite, and he really is a hard worker, right? He and Abuelo are hard workers. They sat on the curb to wait for the van, and when it came, they stood and brushed the dirt from their clothes. Ben got out and stared up at the bank. Holy Toledo, he said. You didn't think we could do such a good job, Francisco wanted to laugh. Ben seemed so shocked. Francisco gave a little jump and pretended to slam dunk a ball. Like the Lakers, we work hard. I can't believe it, Ben whispered. You took out all the plants and left the weeds. Did you see that coming? Francisco stepped closer to Abuelo. But the flowers, he began. Ben pointed. Those flowers are chickweed. Chickweed! You took out my young ice plants. He yanked off his Lakers cap and slammed it against the van. What can we learn right now about Ben? Through his actions. He's mad. I wouldn't say he's mean, but he's mad right now, right? What is it? Did we do something wrong? Abuelo whispered in Spanish to Francisco. Ben's mustache quivered with anger. I thought you said your grandfather was a fine gardener. He doesn't even know a chickweed? Abuelo looked from one of them to the other. Tell me what is happening, Francisco. All right, so what are we kind of learning about Abuelo? He's kind of confused, right? Because he doesn't understand English. So, Abuelo, maybe we could say down here, what do we learn by observing? Abuelo's confused, right? We left the weeds, we took out the plants, Francisco said softly in Spanish. It was hard to look at his grandfather as he spoke. He thought we knew about gardening, Abuelo said. His Spanish was fast and angry. You lied to him, isn't that so? We needed a day's work. We do not lie for work. What is that called? So that was Abuelo who said that. What is that called? When you don't lie, no matter what. You're honest. So, is Abuelo honest? Yeah. Okay, So that's a very good conclusion we can draw. He's very honest, no matter what. Now there was more sadness than anger in Abuelo's voice. Oh, my grandson. He put a hand on Francisco's shoulder. Ask him what we can do. Tell him we will come back tomorrow if he agrees. We will pull out the weeds and put the good plants back. Francisco felt his heart go weak. But, Abuelo, that will be twice the work, and tomorrow is Sunday. There's a Lakers game on TV, and there is also church. He hoped the word church would perhaps change his grandfather's thinking. We will miss them both then, his grandfather said. It is the price of the lie. Tell the gentleman what I said and ask him if the plants will live. So he is very honest. And should we add hardworking? We'll add that in a minute. He rubbed his eyes. This is partly my fault. I should have stayed to get you started, but tell your grandfather I appreciate his offer, and I'll bring you back in the morning. The three of them got in the van. So Abuelo is honest and hardworking. And remember, both of these are a little similar. So if you have more room in one, you can add it. Abuelo is honest and hardworking. So let's kind of stop and think about this. So they have to come back tomorrow to get the work done. Francisco sat by the window in huddled silence. He didn't wave to passing cars. He didn't raise his cap. He'd helped his grandfather find work, but in the end, the lie had spoiled the day. His throat burned with tears. The parking lot was empty. The trash can overflowed with newspaper cups and sandwich wrappings. Ben let them out. So are we learning a little bit more about Francisco? He feels guilty, right? So we could also add that too. Francisco feels guilty. Look, Ben said, if you need money, I'll give you half now. He began to pull his wallet from his pocket, but Abuelo held up his hand. Tell him we take the pay tomorrow when we finish. Francisco's grandfather and Ben looked at each other, and words seemed to pass between them, though there were no words. Ben slid his wallet back into his pocket. Francisco sighed. The lie had taken the chorizos too. I think he's really feeling guilty now. Tomorrow, 6 a.m., Ben said, and tell your grandfather I can always use a good man for more than just one day's work. So these actions are showing us again how Abuelo is really, he's a great person. He could have just said, give me that money, or take half of the money. He could have done a lot of other things besides what he ended up doing. So the author really is describing Abuelo as a very good character, a very good role model for Francisco too, right? Francisco gave a hop of excitement. More than just a day's work? Ben was still speaking. The important things your grandfather already knows, and I can teach him gardening. Francisco nodded. He understood. He would tell his grandfather, and he would tell him something else. He, Francisco, had begun to learn the important things too. Francisco took his grandfather's cold, rough hand in his. Let's go home, Abuelo, he said. All right, so I want you to make your prediction. So based on what we know about Francisco and Abuelo, we've come up with a lot of character traits to describe them, right? We've also used the setting to kind of come up with a conclusion that they don't really have a lot of money. They don't have a very good life right now. What do you think might happen next? So Ben is letting them come back tomorrow to work to earn the money, right? And then Ben also said, the important things your grandfather knows already, and I can teach him gardening. So now that we know a lot about Abuelo and Francisco through the characters and through the setting, throughout their actions and interactions, I want you to post, what do you think is going to happen next? All right? I can't wait to see your prediction. Talk to you later. Bye.